So, hello everyone. I think some more participants will be joining in a couple of minutes, but yeah, let's start because we are already 1 minute too late, I can say. Welcome everyone to our webinar on CARIAISuite, solving automotive engineering and compliance challenges using AI. My name is Praveen Suvarna, founder and CEO at CARNIQ. A bit of my background, I was a part of ISO working group 11, which was responsible for developing ISO 21434 standard and also other related standard related to cybersecurity like 5112 and also something related to verification validation. Have experience in functional safety, was also a trainer. I'm also an Intex certified A-Spice provisional assessor. But currently when it comes to CARNIQ, we are dealing mainly with automotive cybersecurity and also we are venturing a bit into AI related tools which can simplify our lives. And that is the main motto of today's webinar, where we will be going a bit deeper into this particular tool, carAISuite. So along with me, my colleague and co-founder Falgun is also here. So Falgun, maybe a couple of sentences about yourself.
Hello, guys. Very happy to be here, and I'm really excited to see a good crowd for this webinar. It's really interesting webinar, I would say. Quick introduction about me, Palgun Upadhyaya, and you can address me as Palgun. Have been in this industry for more than a decade now, and been involved in functional safety and cybersecurity. Have been involved in the cybersecurity training. Was also part of AutoSAR consortium for both functional safety and cybersecurity in the development stage. Was also the author, the document owner for the IAM modules in AutoSAR standards. And also, as Praveen mentioned, certified professional assessor, Intact certified professional assessor, and at CARNIQ, heading the operations, me and our team together, we have lived through the problems which we are also going to talk about in this webinar. What kind of challenges that we face. So this is where we are trying to leverage AI and see how better we can use AI and try to have much easier development process. And yeah, looking forward for a good, fruitful interaction today.
Amazing. Thank you, Falgun, for the introduction. So guys, this is the first webinar we are trying on, or we are talking about carAISuite. But going forward, we will also host some series of webinars where we will also be, presenting some features of carAISuite with some example. Since it is the first webinar where we are also limited with the time, we will also talk about the features. But just for your information, we will also arrange some more webinars every 2 months where we will also be, going through some of the features, showcasing some features, showing some demos through the webinar. So if at all you are not, following us on LinkedIn, then, follow our page because that's where normally webinars are published so that you can take part in our upcoming webinars as well. Great. Then having said that, let's look at the agenda for today's session. What do we have in our plate for today? Right. So I will take a couple of minutes to introduce CARNIQ in the beginning, because maybe some of the participants may not really know completely about what we do at CARNIQ. So I will take a couple of slides to talk about CARNIQ. Then we also talk about current challenges because, of course, now we are going to talk about this particular solution, carAISuite. But in order to come there, we might have seen some problems, which is also something you might be facing in your day-to-day work in automotive industry. So we'll also talk about current challenges and how are we trying to solve it with the help of this particular tool, or what is the motivation for us to get in here. So this is something we will discuss. Then we will also touch upon a bit on generic models because now we know that everybody has access to one or the other AI tool. If not everything, most of us are having access to at least ChatGPT, right? Maybe on a day-to-day basis, we are using ChatGPT for different reasons. But having said that, there are some challenges, there are some limitations when you use generic models. And also there is something you have to be aware of. So this is also something we touch upon. Then Falgun will take you guys over the CARAI suite itself. What is the architecture? What are the current features we are supporting? What are the upcoming features? So this is something we will talk in detail. Then I will also take you through some of the customer stories because we have been doing this for more than a year now in the development of CARAI suite. So currently we are also running some pilot with a couple of tier ones, European tier ones. So this is where I would also like to talk about some customer stories, what we are doing, what problems we are solving, etc., etc. So this is something we will talk. And at the end, guys, we will also take some questions from your side. So having said that, I think I'll also have some more information about question and answer in the next slide. So I believe you guys have access to question and answer, uh, you know, this particular feature on Teams. You are able to see, this is what I believe. So this is where during the course of the webinar, if at all you guys have any questions, you can type your questions there based on how much time we have at the end of the webinar. We will try to take some questions. And also, if at all you like the question posted by somebody else, you can also upvote. Then normally we will, go with the questions which has more number of upvotes because this is what, where everybody has some interest. So this is where feel free to type your questions and we will take all your questions at the end of this session. Great. Then we will get into our first topic, which is about CARNIQ. I mean, if at all you are already following us on LinkedIn, or you are following our posts on LinkedIn, you might be knowing what we are doing. Having said that, we are an automotive cybersecurity company based in two locations currently. Munich is our headquarters, and we are also based in Mysore, India. So Munich is where most of our design happens. It could be with respect to the product, and also all our automotive cybersecurity services are executed from Munich. Our Indian location is more like an innovation center for us, where our AI engineers, our product development engineers, they all coming from India. They are a part of our Indian innovation center. So this is where from India we are mostly focusing on the product development aspect, and everything else is handled currently from our headquarters in Munich, Germany. So what is our mission? So our mission is to expedite the security of next-gen vehicles through disruptive innovation and technology. Because if at all you look at our background, be it me or Falgun, we have been in the automotive service industry for more than a decade now, worked for different OEMs, especially in Europe, served for different automotive, tier ones and OEMs in different projects, and have a lot of experience executing service projects, be it related to AutoSAR, functional safety, cybersecurity, or A-Spice, defending the assessments, also assessing as an assessor. So that is something we have done for a while. And when we thought of forming, our own company as CARNIQ, we thought that we will focus more into cybersecurity. There also, of course, services are easy. This is something we do because we are a bootstrapped organization. So this is where currently we also do services on automotive cybersecurity. But having said that, we thought that we also need to build some products because there is a lot of gap when it comes to cybersecurity because of the newly introduced standards. And this is where we also thought that okay, we will do the cybersecurity services, but besides that we will also spend some time and energy also on building the product. So this is where currently we cater to business models. One is cybersecurity services and the other one is cybersecurity products. When it comes to the cybersecurity services, maybe we can go to the next slide. We do anything in and around ISO 21434. It could be related to cybersecurity analysis, performing TARAs for the customers, or cybersecurity development, any kind of a testing, including the pen testing, or also the cybersecurity training, the process deployment related to cybersecurity based on ASPICE, or also the cybersecurity management, where you take care of all the cybersecurity related activities on based on ISO 21434 standards, planning, executing, preparing for the audit and assessment, defending our customers for the during the audit and assessment. This is all typical automotive cybersecurity services we do. And when it comes to the products, currently we offer two products. Car security is something which is there in the market since almost 2 years now. That was our first product. That was about automotive cybersecurity process landscape tool. And currently, today, the topic is about Car AI Suite. So, this is more about an AI based tool for automotive engineering and compliance. So, these are the tools, is something we offer currently in the market. Good. That said, colleagues, we are through with our CARNIQ intro. Now, let's come into the point, the current challenges. Now, I believe you guys are a bit active on LinkedIn, and if at all you are active on LinkedIn, there's a lot of discussion going on in the past couple of weeks at least, because we are seeing a bit of a slowdown when it comes to the European automotive market, I would say, because I'm also speaking to some customers based out of Asia or US. There is also a slowdown, but not as much as what we see in, especially in European market. And now there is a very interesting discussion, especially on LinkedIn. I see there are kind of a three groups. I mean, at least 1 week ago, I was only seeing two groups, but as of today, I see three groups because there is a kind of a discussion where there's a lot of talk about are these compliances overloading European automotive companies because now we have ASPICE. Along with that, for the functional safety projects, we have ISO 26262. Then, of course, we have ISO 21434 cybersecurity. And there is a lot of growing discussion that these standards or these regulations or these compliances needs are really slowing down, or maybe the reason for the slowdown of automotive companies, because every time we have been comparing ourselves with maybe the way Chinese companies are doing the work, or maybe Tesla, right? So there is a group which is more favoring the developers, who is more in favor of continuous development, rapid changes, rapid prototyping, who are of the opinion that the standards such as ASPICE is really the bottleneck, because in some cases, some experts are also claiming that when you execute a project where you don't have to think about ASPICE, and then you execute a project where you have to think about ASPICE, the difference is like 10x when it comes to the effort. I don't know how true or not true this fact is, or whether I would agree with this or I don't agree with this. It's not the matter, but that's what the discussion is. There's a lot of overload because of the compliance. On the other hand, there are colleagues or the professionals who are much in favor of these particular standards, who are of the opinion that maybe we are not understanding the standards properly, right? Whoever is claiming that there is a lot of effort and this is slowing down the economy or the automotive companies, maybe they are not understanding it properly, or they are trying to not optimizing the standard when it comes to the use, right? And there comes a third group, because that is one interesting post which I read maybe a couple of days ago, where there's a third group which is claiming that maybe ASPICE level 1 is good because it talks about the base practices, where you develop your engineering work products, do the traceability reviews, etc., which is important and good. And maybe level 2 is not good. This is where the efforts are more. So where do we stand? Because coming to our experience, we have lived the life in both the side of the river, you can say, because as I said, I'm myself an ASPICE assessor. Having said that, I spent a lot of time preparing our customers into ASPICE assessments and defending them in ASPICE assessment. So that's where me and my team have spent a lot of time. So we have seen both the sides. So this is where what I really feel is that there is no one clear cut answer, because I don't think we will get into a scenario where we will say, okay, it's too much. We cannot really live with the standard and we'll get rid of all the standard. I don't think it's going to work. On the other hand, I'm also of the opinion that the current way, how we are dealing with the standards, this is also not going to work for a long time. The reason being, there are several, the problems currently, because if at all you have to show compliance to the standard, there are several problems, because now, I mean, on the screen, you can see Of course, you need people with experience all the time. If at all somebody leaves the job or goes to another company, then you have to find somebody else if they are trained one, or if they are experienced one good enough. Otherwise, you have to spend time on training as an organization. There is always an increased effort. As I told, if at all you are running a project without thinking about standard like ASPICE, for example, the effort is less with the standard like ASPICE, preparing, doing the audit assessments. Then if you fail, of course you have to go for reassessments, prepare, etc. There's effort is high. Time consuming, which is directly proportional to your effort. The quality may be insufficient most of the times, because of course at the end of the day, it depends on what is the experience level of the person who is handling these topics. If the experience is not enough, because finding people, qualified people in the market is also tough. So everything directly impacting the quality. Expensive, okay, once again directly proportional. Effort is proportional to the the money we spend. The more effort we spend, of course, the price is also going to be higher. And also uncertainty, which is also another thing where at the end of the day we are not really sure, because we have also seen some customers where who did really good when it comes to ASPICE in one project. After 3 years, they did another project, and the results were really drastically bad, in a sense that they are not able to reproduce the result from one project to another project. So this is where there is a lot of uncertainty. So which is how the things are working currently, which is more of a legacy way. Now, what is the right way to change it? What is the way to go about it? So this is where, when we built our first tool, car security, which is process landscape tool based on ISO 21434, and also in compliance to the latest state of the art ASPICE standard. We were talking to different customers, and every time the customers, when we are talking to the customers about this particular tool, every time the same question what we got is, of course, at the end of the day, we may have a brilliant process in place as an organization, but the challenge will still remain, which means our engineers will always have a problem to leave these processes. That is the biggest challenge at the end of the day, right? This is where the effort is in. So this is where we felt that maybe we are not trying to address the elephant in the room, because that is what the real challenge, where we have to help somebody to leave the process, because that's exactly where the challenge lies. And we brainstormed internally, and we felt that maybe we need to make use of AI to reduce the effort, to bring out some kind of a solution with the help of AI, where we can reduce some effort, bring some systematic results, where which can act as an aid to somebody who is doing these activities. It's not going to replace. This is something we definitely know. Any tool cannot replace anybody who is doing a job in automotive industry, but it has to aid them in a day-to-day activity where they can take a help and build from there. So that's where the birth of carAISuite happens. But having said that, colleagues, of course, there is always a question. We have also access to several other tools. There are generic models, in the market. Everybody are using Chat GPT, etc., etc. Why do we need a separate tool, or what is so much great about building a tool which is only specific to automotive? So there are some limitations. So this is where, before we touch upon the features or much more details about carAISuite, let's step back a bit and talk a bit about generic models and what are the challenges and limitations and what to be aware. So I will give it to my colleague Falgun to take you guys over through this particular session. Falgun, over to you.
Thank you, Praveen. So yes, colleagues, what we also already saw is about the problem itself. So we do accept and we do realize that there is some kind of problem when it comes to compliance, be it ASPICE, be it ISO 26262, be it ISO 21434. Because when we are talking about 26262 or 21434, there are various levels. So you have different ASIL levels, you have different CAL levels, and since you guys are already working in this field, you might know that depending on what level the functional safety or the cybersecurity is, the efforts also vary. And the same goes with ASPICE as well. Like, if you need to comply to level 1 or level 2 or level 3, the efforts significantly vary. right? So to address this problem, anyways, the whole world is talking about AI with the introduction of ChatGPT, and it's been almost more than a decade now, where at least from the research point of view, where AI has taken over the significant share in the world. So we thought of, getting AI into this and also leveraging AI, because with this, of course, the more time the engineers have, the more creative they can become. That's the whole point of leveraging AI. And when we try to do this, as Praveen mentioned, since more than a couple of years we have been dwelling in this, so we did encounter a lot of things with AI. And in this part of the webinar, we want to share with you what are the main challenges, what are the main, let's say, pitfalls or the factors that we need to look into when we say, let's invite AI in our professional life, right? So the first part, as Praveen mentioned, is generic models. If we go back to the generic models slide itself, so here you can see that in the generic model slide, um, yeah, uh, we have heard about Chat GPT or Gemini or Bard or Llama models. There are so many models. Now Chat GPT itself is a UI which uses a GPT model, but there are also some open source model on top of which you can build some applications. So now what are the challenges if you just use generic model, right? So let's say today, you take a model and then you want to create some requirements, right? So you ask a question to the model saying that, okay, I want to implement a security feature. For example, let's say in my software, I want to make communications very secure. So I want to use secure onboard communications. This is a SecOC feature, probably, which is also going to help me in compliance to ISO 21434. And also it might be a requirement coming from one of your customers, right? So you do that and then you ask questions. So the model itself replies with a significant requirement, I mean, and a good quality of requirements too, saying that, okay, you need to have the freshness value, you need to have this algorithm implemented, and you can use 8-bit key or 16-bit key. It can tell all these details. Now what is the problem here? Because you already got your data, right? And you'll start utilizing this data, and then your work of creating your requirements is significantly reduced. The other side of it is, which you would not see probably, would be, now since the model has defined all these things, the model also knows that you are kind of using 8-bit key or 16-bit key, which means it's not just you who have access to this data, but also the the unethical hackers, like harmful intent hackers, the black hat attackers, also have this, which means they already know what is your key length. I'm just taking an example of SecOC feature, but there are so many other features as well. So the key point here is, if we start using generic models and build our design and architecture on top of these generic models, the problem would be that these data will be shared amongst a lot of people, and this could compromise the complete architecture itself. It could probably become a much more easier for the attackers to get the access to your ECUs. So this is where one important thing is, creating generic models or utilizing generic models would be a big threat. Moving on to the next slide. In terms of the model exposing the data, yes, that itself is a problem. But is that the only problem that the generic model poses? No. There are also other problems that as a user we will also face, which means the generic models are not trained for the automotive specific data, right? So these generic models are on the go, they are also learning, right? So they learn with the common world knowledge. That means it is not just automotive specific, it can be home automation specific, it can be aerospace specific. So there are a lot of data going around in the world, right? So when you're trying to get some data, so there is lack of training with respect to automotive specific data, which means the output that the generic models generate might require more of human efforts to tweak in the output to make sure that it is in the right compliant way for you to achieve the compliance. And this would be another problem. It also requires a lot of customization to support, the organization project needs. So when we say a lot of customization, you might also require, because when you are talking about requirements, again, I'm going back to the requirement in a few minutes. I will also tell why I'm specifying requirements a bit more. When you're talking about the requirements, there are so many tools in automotive industry that we use. There is Doors, there is JAMA, there is Polarian, there is Codebeamer. There are so many tools, and for each of the tools, there are various ways the organization wants to, add this. Or customize their requirements, right? And there is no one right method. Again, as per ASPICE or as per ISO 26262 or 21434. So when you're talking about writing your requirements in the natural language, so as long as it catches all the information, it captures all the information, that's good. Over information is okay. There no standard says that you should not have more information. Less information is bad, yes, but if you have more information, always good. So every organization have their own needs and have their own standards to, create the requirement. So this is where the generic models will kind of have a problem. But if you have a specific model where you can, probably train your model saying that, hey, these are the columns I'm looking for in a requirement. These are the fields I'm looking for in a requirement. That would probably reduce much more human intervention in terms of, correcting the output coming from the AI. And you can leverage the AI completely. Then moving on, no systematic output of the data. So that means in the generic model, even today, when you ask ChatGPT, you ask the same question into different timestamps. You may end up getting two different answers, and that is okay in the real world in terms of the applications that we are using. But when you're talking about professional system development, when you ask, let's say, the generic model for one feature, and then you generate the requirements, and tomorrow your customer comes back and provides a change request and say, hey, change this, I mean, probably add one more feature. And then when you ask the same question to the generic model, then the model can generate a completely new set of requirements which is not relevant to what it generated before, and it may also be true. So this is another problem. So these are some of the bigger challenges when we try to use generic models. And in our experience, it wouldn't really work when we talk about just generic models. And this is one key factor probably you will have to consider when you are trying to evaluate certain tools, certain AI tools that you would want to utilize in your let's say professional life. Moving on to the next slide. So what is the expectation? So we want to make sure that, we set the expectations correct when it comes to AI being taken over, or rather utilizing AI in the development. So currently, whatever maturity AI has, it may not be 100% perfect. So what do I mean by it may not have 100% perfect maturity? That means AI is also learning. It is consuming a lot of data and it is also learning. That means if you are under the notion that, okay, when I introduce AI, I can, save literally the requirement engineer's work or an architect's work, which means I can completely rely on the AI. This may not be a true statement. You will have to have a lot of human intervention. So in the next coming slides, we will also see why or where human intervention is required. But AI may not be 100% perfect. Probably in future, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, we may end up to going towards that, but we are not there yet. Which brings me to the second point, which is AI cannot replace humans completely. So that means if, let's say, a certain organization is trying to get AI into the development environment, the key factor to think about is AI cannot completely replace the human resources. So talking from the manager's perspective, so let's say if AI, if the manager is trying to invest in the AI tool, it is not 100% correct that, okay, I have invested X amount in the AI tool, which means I'm completely removing that group of employees, because that group of experts bring in much more knowledge which is required to validate the results of AI. So that is required. Moving on, what would AI bring in? So in our experience, based on the POCs we are running, we are doing the experiments with our customers, what we have seen is almost up to 70% of the efforts can be reduced when it comes to AI. So when you integrate AI, you can say that almost up to 70% AI can support you, and the rest 30% to complete the work, you would have to have human intervention, and that is already a significant increase, right? So you are saving 70% of time. That means that 70% of time can be utilized to better the design, come up with new techniques, etc. So this is the advantages that AI is bringing in. Moving on to the next point, requires customization initially, so which we already talked about as one of the drawback in the generic models. So whenever we are talking about AI models, one of the key things to note also is that whenever you are trying to evaluate certain tool, one important factor is that that tool or the AI model itself needs to have some kind of customization to the requirement that you have. That means to the standard that you have, be it the architecture, be it the requirement, or be it the test cases. It definitely requires some kind of customization. Off the shelf right now, in our opinion, with our experience, may not be working that well compared to the customized solutions. Moving on to the next point, master use case by use case. Sorry, master use case by use case. So what do we mean here is when we say AI introduction, so there is a V model in our automotive development, right? So this is a classic V model. So we have level on the left side development cycle, on the right side we have the verification and validation. So when you're trying to get an AI model, integrating everything together, all the left side and all the right side may not be a most feasible option, because if there is an AI tool which is already generating the test cases, it means that the AI tool is also considering certain specific way of requirements, and it needs that kind of requirements. If it is not there, then the output may not be that feasible and that significant effort reduction when it provides an output. That means you need to have a proper use case for the requirements, make sure that is validated, which then will probably help you generate good test cases. The same way, if you are talking about the downward traceability for the architecture, a good syntactically defined requirement will probably help you in defining a better architecture. So this is where what we say is use case by use case. So here the use case is requirement. So once we master deploying the requirement use case AI model and the team is comfortable, then we go to the next one. So this is where when you're trying to utilize and deploy the AI models, this is some also one of the important thing for you to consider. Moving on to the next slide, we talked about AI cannot replace humans. AI has some things that it can do, but human role is critical. So here what we see is we have listed out some of the activities. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. So here we see that in terms of, let's say, if we take up requirement extraction and validation, AI of course can do a fantastic job in consistency checks, performing a lot of reviews, maybe including generation of some of the requirements. But human intervention is completely required because the final say of approval of the requirements or definition of the requirements is coming from human. So let's consider one of the example here. So let's say you're trying to analyze certain requirements which is coming from your customers. That is a stakeholder requirement analysis, which is SIS1, right? So if we give it to the AI, of course, it will say everything is possible, right? Because technically, if you see whatever customer provides, it would definitely be possible because the customer, he or she, they would have already done a concept validation in terms of in the concept phase, and that's how they would have derived their customer requirement specification, right? But now, why human intervention is required? Because when a human intervention comes in, so it's not just one requirement engineer, but also you have the management group, you have the testing group coming all together, where budget is considered, where the testing equipment is considered, where the development environment is considered. So all these things requires human intervention. And that is when human will have a final say in saying that, okay, yes, this is possible, this is not possible. And why is it not possible? It may not be technical reason, but there are other reasons behind it. So this is where human role is important, and the same thing goes for simulation of the test cases and the test generation. So let's say you have the requirements, the AI tries to generate the test cases and run test scenarios. Let's consider maybe the automated driving test cases itself. So in this case, we have seen classic examples where not in the development but at least in the deployment. So we have seen a lot of automated cars, right? So AI detects an object and there can be a problem there, that the object can be a human, the object can be a non-living thing also. So in that case, what would be the let's say decision that the AI has to take? It can either be a flaw in the sensor or it can be an actual object. So AI cannot differentiate all those things. So this is where human intervention is required. So this is in terms of the driving, but the same thing applies in terms of the test case scenarios also. So there might be cases where you might have to override certain test cases. There might be scenarios where you might have to tweak in the test criteria itself. So this is where human intervention is required. And most importantly, in terms of compliance requirements, that is ISO 26262 or 21434, sorry, there is risk acceptance and compliance certification. So when you do the risk acceptance, so there is a process called TARA, there is a process called HARA, where you take the risk and then you accept some of the residual risk, right? Both in the safety and also in security. So when you accept some of the risk, this is can only be done by humans because they are the ones who, or rather we are the ones, I'm sorry, I'm saying they, so we are the ones who are thinking of all the use cases, right? What is a possible use case and what is not an impossible use case, and based on that we accept the risk. So these are some of the things which human intervention is 100% required, and AI may be too perfect to kind of you know decide based on its own knowledge. And some of the other examples that I also have mentioned is in terms of the fault detection and prediction. This is one of the activity where human intervention is also required, and in terms of code analysis. So you must have had this nightmare, right? So when we talk about static code analysis, this is kind of a big nightmare for all the coders, right? So be it C or be it C++, there is MISRA compliance, there is HIS compliance, now introduction of cybersecurity, there is CERT compliance, and there are huge number of errors in terms of style violations or metric violations, right? Now you would want to justify. AI may not justify everything. AI, if you integrate all these things in your CI/CD setup, what it would do is it would just perform the check and say, hey, this is wrong. I will not allow you to release the build. But even if the naming convention itself is wrong, or even if you have written a complex function where the cyclometric complexity is more than 10, etc., but your compliance standard would say, okay, it should not be more than 5, right? So this is where you would probably go in and justify. You cannot break that complex function into multiple functions, probably because it would then say, my execution time will become more. So this is where human intervention comes into picture. So all in all, moving on to the next slide. So considering all the factors about what the generic models can do, what are the flaws there, and what are the interventions, human interventions, where human interventions are required. So what to be cautious of? Three main features, or three main factors that we need to be conscious of in terms of features. If when we are evaluating the tool, what kind of features that the tool provides, what is the efficiency of the tool. When we are trying to talk about efficiency, we are also there are scores. There is F1 score, there is residue score, there is recall score. So there are so many scores on which the models are established, models are measured. So this is the efficiency, and also reduction in cost and effort. So keep in mind that when people are saying, or when you are evaluating certain tools, when certain figures are mentioned to you, so in terms of reduction in cost and effort, it should be realistic. So these are the three main key takeaways that we need to look into in terms of the features that we are looking for in whenever we consider AI tool. Having said this, let's quickly jump into the tool that we have today, which Praveen already introduced. Moving on to the next slide. So we call this as carAISuite. The reason we call this as suite is because there are a lot more things that can come in. So we have kind of scope in a way limited right now because trying to put in use case by use case to make sure the industry adapts to the AI tool, and the AI tool adapts to the industry and make it more and more user friendly and also more efficient. So here what we try to do is moving on to the next slide. We have two main features in this CarAI suite as the first approach or the first release. So we are doing generation and we are doing compliance. Focusing a bit on generation. So what exactly is generation? So in here, we are trying to generate certain work products, engineering work products, like, system requirements, software requirements, hardware requirements. So this is something that is happening in terms of the generation. And in terms of the process related work products, your cybersecurity plans or your functional safety plans, ASPICE related work products, the process description itself. So these are some of the things the CarAI suite right now is capable of. And helping in on the other window where you already have certain requirements, compliance. That means conducting some formal reviews, technical reviews, where if you have your own checklist, you can already integrate this checklist to the tool, and the tool already will check it for you on a continuous basis, where it can check all the factors, provide the result, whether it is completely fulfilled, largely fulfilled, not really fulfilled, and also provide certain help and hint how to fix in order to comply. So these are the two main features that we have already in the CarAI suite. Moving on to the next slide, throwing a bit of light on the architecture itself. So overall architecture. So in the development environment, you can feel free, you can have the freedom to have any kind of environment, which means you can have a GitHub repository, you can have Polarian, you can have Subversion network, you can have Doors, you can have different automotive development environment. The most important thing would be that you need to be able to export in terms of either PDF, Word, or HTML or Excel. So the tool itself, CarAI Suite, takes any of these four input, and we integrate this with your development environment. Inside the tool itself, the architecture is that whatever data format you provide, there is a pre-processing that is done to make sure that the input is in the format that is required for the backend of the tool. And in the backend, the whole magic works. The model runs, which is also a trained specific model specifically for your organization, and which will provide you, of course, the output, which is a fine-tuned model. And in the post-processing, so this is where when I said you need to also customize the tool, the post-processing happens where the output will be curated to the need that you want. Like if you have a certain need that you need specific fields to be added in the requirement, it would be done in this post processing, and the output work product, of course, can be then reintegrated to any of the tools like Polarian, Doors, Git, Subversion, etc. Apart from that, we also provide two solutions. One is on-premise solution and the private cloud solution. When we say on-premise solution, everything, the data, everything, the model, everything will run on-premise, which means it also comes with having that powerful machine on-premise. And when we are talking about private cloud, it will be hosted on private cloud, but that private cloud and the data will be secure because that data will only be accessible to your company. To have more details on this, Praveen also will tell you more about how to, get into a demo and have more details on the on-premise and private cloud. Moving on to the next slide, since we have less time here because of the time constraint, of course we could not show you the demo. This is some snapshots of our tool which we have captured in when the tool is working with different customers. So you can see that on the left side, we have done some compliance where the summary of the report is created. It also creates what are the violated criteria, and it also gives you exact requirement IDs and what is violated and the hints. And on the right side, you can also see some of the security requirements that are generated. You can see right in the middle, in the generation part where you provide the ECU description, you provide all the inputs, and the tool considers all these inputs and provides you the output. Moving on to the next slide. So shedding a bit of light on what I meant by CARAI suite. So as I said, the suite itself will come up with more and more features, but right now it is only in the requirement generation or the artifact generation and the compliance. And here we are talking mainly the system software and the hardware requirements and some of the product, some of the process related artifacts. But in future, you can always expect that, we are working on the generation of the test specification. So from the requirement, take all the things and already start generating the test cases so that you can start executing the test cases, which should already help you. And also the next important thing that we are also working on is architecture design, which will also be rolled out in future. So these are the two main, let's say, upcoming features. Having said this, I would like to pass it on to Praveen, where he would like to share some of the customer stories that we have. And over to you, Praveen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Falgun. So, colleagues, before I start with this section, if at all you have any questions, you can already type your questions because since it's a webinar, chat is disabled. So you have a in the top icon question Q&A. So you can already type your questions and at the end we will take some questions based on how much time we have. Okay, customer stories. So currently, this is one interesting, pilot we are doing with the German tier one. So what is their problem is normally this is the tier one in the sense that they are in the automotive market since a long time, and standards like ASPICE is also not really new to them. They have also successfully executed some projects on ASPICE and got very good result. But the problem with them is in the current project they are not able to reproduce that result. Yeah, whatever they did the last assessment maybe 2 3 years ago where they had a good result, then maybe shift of people and experts and this kind of a problem, they are not able to reproduce the same result in the current ongoing project. So this is where we got in touch with them. So this is where their problem is more about the high effort in derivation of system software specification, because they have about I think 2,000 to 3,000 stakeholder requirements. Then you can think of how much of effort it would require to generate the system and software requirement. Time pressure, resource constraint, that is also another problem because they also do not have a lot of people to do this kind of an activity. Unable to meet OEM process requirement. The first assessment they did, they didn't get even level one, level zero. So they are also under time pressure because of course in order to go for end of development, of course they have to share the results. So there is also a time pressure. And also, as I said, failure to produce the systematic outcome, which means they are able to produce some good result in one project, but not able to keep up the same result in another one. So what they wanted is, of course, compliance to the process requirement, which is something important, and significant reduction in the time and effort, which is the problem everywhere, in my opinion, when it comes to compliance, and the systematic outcome. So normally what we do in this kind of a scenario is, this is something what we did with this particular German tier one. So as a first step, we have to agree on the customization, because as we know, whenever I talk about system requirement, it differs from organization to organization in the sense that every organization has their own templates, their own way of writing the work products, their own way of storing in a different tools. They may even have a different development tools. So initially, we agree on the customization that includes what is in scope of the pilot and what is the structure of the work products they are looking for, what kind of input they have, because this is something interesting and important for us for the pre-processing. What kind of a models and deployment are their requirement? Like, do they want to go for an open source model, or do they want to go for some private cloud solution based on their IT infrastructure? And what kind of a compliance requirement that they have? For example, do they have ASPICE as a compliance requirement or a cyber security, etc.? Then we, using our platforms, car security, carAISuite platform, we will derive the system and software specification. But that is not it, because at the end of the day, when I say a tier one, they also have their their own IP, because they are building some kind of a system from several years. There are certain requirements which only they know, which is not available at the outside world. So this is where we also have to tailor and train the models for their specific requirement. That is where the specific customization comes in. So we have a platform model which is able to generate maybe 60 to 70% of the requirement, which we are we which we have already trained our models on. which is based on the information which is available in standards like AUTOSAR, security mechanism, security generic security controls, all these things which our model is already capable of. On the other hand, we also have to do the customization where we also have to train the models on customer specific data, which is their IP. Then, of course, regular meeting with the experts and then, deploying the CARAIS suite, making sure that, all the data privacy and the future updates are ensured. So this is something currently we are working with this particular German tier one. Moving on to another customer story. So this is another case where we are working on the cybersecurity artifact generation. Again, the problem is also because we know that there are also not enough, experts when it comes to the cybersecurity area in the market. So this is one of the biggest problem for this particular tier one, and their need is they want to, of course, want to have a early mover advantage, have a competitive advantage over the competitors when it comes to the use of AI tools and reduction of workload because their current existing cybersecurity experts also have a lot of workload because they are limited in number but a lot of projects. And again, the systematic outcome is another key need. So again, the same process, even in this sense also, because we know there are hundreds of, work products in cybersecurity. So we plan it out from phase to phase. Like we'll take off certain documents, which is their first need or initial interest. We will work on that. We will think about the customization. We'll make sure that the models are deployed to generate based on their need. Then we move on, bringing in the other work products of the cybersecurity. And the third customer story, if you can move on, this is something coming from our customer because it is not one of our basic use case because our basic use case is generation and the compliance. But here we are doing the stakeholder requirement elicitation. So this story is coming from the customer because we were not thinking about this particular use case. So they have a huge number of stakeholder requirement, like 4,000 or something, where their problem is in the earlier projects, whenever these, elicitation is not done correctly, there is a direct impact on the lower level, like the system level or the software level. And also because of that, they also had issues in the assessment where their customer requirements are not elicited. So this is where they also couldn't prioritize the system or software requirements. So in this case, we are using carAISuite to elicitate the simple elicitation of the customer requirement, where based on their need, because they have different requirement where they have to segregate the customer requirement based on priority, assigning them to the milestones, what requirement should go first, and evaluate them based for the technical feasibility, operating environment feasibility, etc., etc., eliciting and making sure that they have this input available for their system and software team. So this is also one of the interesting, use case where we are working on with the Italian tier one right now. Moving on, so those were the customer stories, and we also mentioned that okay, there is also an opportunity for everybody who will attend this webinar to execute, free POC with us. It is pretty simple. You can request for a demo at our website, which is carniq.ai, or you can directly write to us at carAISuite at carniq.ai. We can define a scope. Of course, since it is a free of cost POC, we will take anything which is less than 1 week of an effort for us. If at all we need to sign an NDA or any other required document for your organization, we can also do that and we can get started. The reason I say this because at the end of the day, you understand it better or you understand the outcome better when you see something on your own. So this is where if you have some use cases where you want to try it out with us with the help of the CARA suite, we are also open to run these POCs with you guys without any cost. Of course, we have to make sure that the scope is limited so that it is not too much of a burden on us. So we are open, write to us or feel free to schedule a demo in our website, which is www.carniq.ai. So guys, we have 5 minutes. If there are any questions, we would be happy to take the questions from anyone. Okay, I think seems like we have a question from Rohit Kumar, which says a good cyber person using existing AI models like ChatGPT will probably not write specific prompts to these tools, but let's just assume he does. then there becomes a possibility of sensitive details being leaked to the adversaries. But isn't it certain if we use this tool, then these details are definitely leaked to CARNIQ? So, do you have some confidentiality measures that ensure no leakage of sensitive data from AI model? Question number one. How did you train your AI models to be automotive specific? Question number two. And third, I might be interested in a demo how to proceed. Okay, so the first question, maybe I will answer the first one. Falgun, maybe you can take the second one about automotive specific training. So the first one, to answer your question, Rohit, because data privacy is one of the interesting topic we always come across, and this is also the question we always get. So this is where what we try to do is, there are two solutions. Whenever I say private cloud, the customer can choose where to deploy the model, in which private cloud. On the other hand, we also facilitate on-premise, deployment, which means our models, which means our tool, including the model which is specifically trained for you, will be in your, you know, IT infrastructure. So there is no way that that data is going out unless our development team, because of course if we are providing the tool, we have to have the access to upgrade it, or to bring in a new feature, etc., etc. So other than that, your data is not going out anywhere. So this is what I can say in terms of how do we make sure that the confidentiality is ensured, that the on-premise solution, or even in case of a private cloud, also of course there is only access to the customer and our development team. But since it is not in your premise, it could be some other's cloud, maybe it is Microsoft or any other Amazon cloud. So there we cannot be sure who else has access, in the sense that okay, those cloud providers also say that they ensure the confidentiality, but there is always a question mark. The second one, Falgun, the question is, how do we train our AI models to be automotive specific?
Yes, I think Rohit, that's a very good and interesting question. So when we are talking about the AI models training automotive specific data, so um, we use standards like AUTOSAR specifications, at least when it comes to the software level. So these are the standards that are already available to all of us, and this is something that we use. On top of that, of course, we are members of the 21434 and the 26262. So this is where we also train the models with 26262 and 21434 checklists and standards. Apart from that, with our experience, there are our team is equipped with software developers and the system providers, I mean system experience people. So this is where we also have created our own data set, which is specifically for certain ECUs in the automotive industry. So this is where, based on the ECU requirements, also we do generate our own data set and train the AI models so that these AI models provide specific output for the use case that we are using. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so for the demo, as I told, you can directly request in our website, carniq.ai, or you can also write to us at carAISuite at carniq.ai. Okay, colleagues, since there are no other questions, I would take the time to thank you all for joining today's session. And as I said, in 2 months' time, we will be doing the follow-up webinars where we will also showcase one by one features. Maybe we'll start with the requirement elicitation as the first feature at the end of March. And I would also take this time to, thank our team for, putting up this particular show, this particular webinar, for working behind the scenes to make it a success. Thank you so much, everybody, and I wish you all a nice and a pleasant weekend. Thank you so much for taking
Have a
part.
nice weekend, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.